IVM.
This podcast is brought to you by India Water Portal, a globally visited website dedicated exclusively to stories, knowledge, information, and news on rural and urban water in India. Hello and welcome to Voices for Water. In the second episode of this series, we move on to understand how the government perceives the water challenge of this country and what are the measures in place to tackle this systemically. I spoke to Debashree Mukherjee, presently serving as an additional secretary of the Department of Water Resources. Debashree is an IAS officer of the 1991 batch and is responsible for a stunning number of the government's measures around water. Besides being the additional secretary, she also drives the river development and Ganga rejuvenation projects. In fact, she's also been given the additional charge of the National Water Mission, or NWM. In short, Debashree is the face of the government's fight to solve the water challenge in this country and someone who has the most comprehensive view of all the moving parts. I spoke to Debashree about the different initiatives the government seems to have launched and more importantly, how accountability is sought for the various investments we've made as a country. I also asked her about the challenge of a central government collaborating with states in a country where the federal structure is so politically charged, and also about the things that give her hope when it comes to water.
We're talking about an overview. There has been, I think, a lot of energy that has gone into water over the last few years. I think the basic issue is that the fact that better water management is essential for livelihoods, and also the fact that, poor water management can fast become an inhibitor of growth is gradually gaining ground. So therefore, the focus on water management has really intensified over the past few years, is my experience as a development professional as well. So, one of the things that has happened is that we talk about, water has frequently been managed in bits and pieces. Even now, when we talk to a number of state governments, you will find that one department looks after irrigation. And even in irrigation, there's probably another agency that looks after command area development, which is getting water to the fields. There is one department that looks after groundwater. There's another department that looks after service provision, which is drinking water. Wastewater is another story altogether. So one thing that has happened is that at the Government of India level, there has been an effort to bring various aspects of water together and try and look at water management holistically. So the Jal Shakti Ministry was created in 2019. It brought service delivery and, water management, which is water resources, river rejuvenation, river management together under, single leadership. So that was one. The second is that I think there is a recognition that surface water and groundwater have to be used conjunctively. You cannot sort of separate between management of surface water and groundwater. They feed into each other. So that understanding and that need to work together is being emphasized. The third area, which is also, basically about climate change management, is the fact that groundwater, which supports drinking water for rural communities largely, which also supports to a very large extent drinking water for urban communities, which has fueled the Green Revolution, needs to be managed more sustainably. And it is one of our largest reservoirs. Right. So therefore, there has been in the recent past a major push on sustainable management of groundwater, including demand side management. River rejuvenation is another major area of focus. And also recognition that, critical water infrastructure, you can't keep building big dams.
Right.
There are certain constraints to this going forward. So therefore, it is important to ensure that the existing dams, the existing water infrastructure their life has to be prolonged, it has to be managed better, it has to be rehabilitated. So these are some of the major areas of work that's going forward.
That is a lot of things that's going on, isn't it?
Yes, it
But
is.
what I found really interesting is that you started the answer by saying poor water management can be a deterrent to growth, which is a very different perspective to the problem, I thought. because it gives all the stakeholders a shared vision, isn't it? Which I'm assuming is extremely critical to mobilize things in one direction. You also mentioned the Jal Shakti Abhiyan, which seemed to be the most ambitious among all of them. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah. So I think that is one of the most interesting initiatives, particularly in the context of the fact that, bringing water back to the consciousness of people. So there is a thinking, and I think it's led from the top, because our Prime Minister comes from a water scarce area where he has been grappling with issues of water scarcity even when he was Chief Minister. And the thinking is that water needs to be everybody's business. So the Jal Shakti Abhiyan really started as it is led by government, but it is a call to action on water recharge and conservation. Now, what happens is that our dependence on monsoon. We all know that monsoons are celebrated in our country. Right? So the rains are so important in poetry, in literature. The rains
you romanticize it.
Yeah, the rains are so important. But this importance is just not because of the aesthetics. It is because rains are rejuvenating, and in a country like ours, where you have a lot of a lot of activities that are rain-fed, the rains are critical. So the question is, how do we prepare for the rains in terms of water recharge and conservation? So the Jal Shakti Abhiyan was, let us prepare to catch the rain where it falls, when it falls, and let's get the entire community enthused about this exercise. The way it works is that, that state governments, district administrations are asked to create district water conservation plans. So there is a certain amount of preparatory activity that goes on, that is expected to go on beforehand, where they look at the water, you look at the water issues in the district. And thereafter you decide, okay, these are the things that need to be done in the 2 months prior to the rains. These are the things that we will do during the rains. And this is expected to be done not just with the existing government machinery, but also by mobilizing communities, mobilizing the private sector, mobilizing whatever organizations that are willing to partner with this exercise. Resources are from MG Narega, District Mineral Fund. Resources are available also from CSR. So it is also about pooling all available resources in a convergent manner to take forward those activities. In terms of priorities, and the idea was that, yes, you decide your own priorities, but there are certain areas that you might want to think about. So one is map all water bodies. Map, geotag, ensure that, because water bodies have a habit of disappearing if they're not of importance to the community, or
becoming apartment complexes, right?
Or becoming apartment complexes, or becoming sinks for wastewater. So therefore, map all your water bodies and assess water body health. Ensure that all the water bodies are entered in the revenue records. Rainwater harvesting in all government buildings. Also check the condition of the rainwater harvesting and water recharge structures, because that's something that, like spring cleaning, this is cleaning prior to the rain, so that you see that all your existing structures are also fit for purpose. Then there is afforestation. This year we have asked areas that have springs to sort of monitor their springs and look at how spring sheds can be protected. So, there are a whole range of activities, and districts will take up activities that are best suited for their needs.
I love what you said, that water should be everybody's problem. And when I think about it, I guess, we're nowhere being close to it, given the kind of, or the complete absence of any awareness around where it comes from and where it goes. You also mentioned working with the state governments and communities. And I'm just thinking that in a country like India, where this relationship, the state-central relationship, is so very politically charged, isn't it? What are some of the unique challenges, that you face when it comes to collaborating with state governments and communities?
So the thing is that, the unique part of the Jal Shakti Abhiyan is the government of India really plays a nudge role in this. The
Right.
key actors are state governments and district administrations. So so really, while there is a certain degree of awareness building, we try to bring in the public representatives into the entire exercise and work through them. We work with civil society organizations to try and mobilize communities. I think I cannot emphasize enough the fact that the hero or the heroine of the state is the state government, the district administration. So this district administration mobilizes communities, and that can be done through multiple means. And this entire Jal Shakti Abhiyan succeeds or fails in an area based on the commitment of the state government and the district administration. So the challenges are, obviously, there is a certain degree of disconnect between a community and a water body. We see this in urban areas. Once I have water flowing out of a tap in my house, how much do I care about where that water is coming from?
Yeah.
And even more importantly, once I use that water, where the wastewater is going, I'm disconnected from that water.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of thing. So the issue is, how do we make people, and for that we need organizations to work with us which have a community connect, so that the fact that all of us have a stake in our own water becomes more, is embedded more strongly in our consciousness.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And to me, it's even difficult to know, right? Today, if you're living in a part of the urban India, how do you know where the water from your community or your society is going to, and what happens to it after? So I'm assuming this whole, there is a bit of knowledge building as well, right?
So one of the things, and that's, when I worked for the Delhi Jal Board for some time. So one of the initiatives that we were thinking of was, to bring in school children into the water treatment facilities and the wastewater facilities. I mean, Singapore does this very well. They have water museums, they have water, knowledge building. So catch them early, tell them whether, if your water is coming from 300 kilometers away, you should know why. Yeah, and if your water, and where is your wastewater going? So is it going into the ground and contaminating your groundwater resources? I always think of both groundwater as well as wastewater as invisible water, because frequently we use it. It's such an important part of our lives, but we actually don't see where it is coming from, what's the quality, and where it is going.
Yeah.
So those are the things that we have a long way to go yet, but there is a very strong case for catching people young, building water into consciousness, and thereafter that's a part of the ongoing exercise.
And in many ways, what you're talking about is a very participatory way of managing water, because I'm assuming that's the only way to do this, right? A single government at the national level or the state level cannot do this, right? It has to be everybody's problem. And I'm assuming that's where Atal Bhujal and programs like that sort of help you in getting this participation going, right? Can you break this down for us as to how that program works?
So Atal Bhujal is a very unique program. It's learning as we do it also. But even in the design of the program, we learn from the community. There are some success stories in certain villages. Hivde Bazar in Maharashtra, where village level leadership actually transformed the water scenario in a village. What they did was they actually sat down and said, okay, this is the annual water available in the village. This is what we get from precipitation. This is the amount of water recharge that happens. And therefore, so they created a water budget for themselves, saying this is what we need for drinking water purposes, and this is how much we can afford to extract for irrigation and other purposes. So that village created a water budget, and which then we call a water security plan, and they got consensus to implement it. And that actually changed the fact that it was the area, the entire cultivation scenario of that village. So that's a much spoken about example. We have all visited that village, seen what has happened, but that was a unique case of village level leadership. How do we replicate this? And the Atal Bhujal Yojana is an effort to take this to scale. So 7 states with water stressed areas in those 7 states were selected, and in those areas this program works to incentivize again village level. One is greater knowledge in the village community about the water availability, the village creating its own water budget, the village designing its own water security plan, looking both at demand management and supply augmentation, which is, do we create more recharge structures? We have a problem, let's say in Bhuj, for instance, you have a problem of salinity. What do you do to manage that salinity? So both supply side as well as demand side, what needs to be done? Then thereafter, with there is incentive money coming in from this program, but also converge other programs that are available to implement the security plan, and thereafter see how it is working. So this is an attempt to take this entire participatory groundwater management effort to scale. So this is the crux of the program. The crux of the program is villages, they create village level ownership of water resources, support villages to plan for their own water management, incentivize both demand side efforts as well as supply side augmentation, and repeat.
You make it sound simple, but there's so much.
This is essentially, but I could go on and on forever about it. It means, so the processes are, there are district implementation partners who are civil society organizations with strong background in participatory groundwater management who work with the village communities. The challenge is that, the district implementation partners have to create that, ownership in the village to be able to manage their own water, right? So there are certain processes and there are certain fiscal incentives as a village, reaches these milestones. But the main objective is not creating, as the milestone is a village water security plan. It is about, what is the process that is followed? Is the village water security plan, being prepared with the knowledge of most of the people in the village? Are women a part of this process? Is it aligned with other major development programs? That is also very important. For instance, if Atal Bhujal Yojana is successful, then our investments in the Jal Jeevan mission are secure. Because, otherwise what happens is, because at least 70% of the village water drinking water schemes will be groundwater based. So if the groundwater is not managed sustainably, then we could go back again and again, what we call the slip back villages. So managing your source groundwater, managing the aquifer is so critical to sort of ensuring that the investments that we make and huge investments that we're making under the Jal Jeevan Mission scheme are sustainable. Right. So those linkages also need to be, very, very clearly articulated, understood, and used.
And I love that it's not a silo, it is integrated into the larger development goal of these communities, right? But, if I may, how do you know when things are working? What are some of the success metrics that you use?
So going forward, one of the simplest things is that, there has been an improvement in the, if the water table has been deteriorating, the water table is arrested. So those things are, the outcomes.
Right.
But in terms of process indicators, as the program goes on, I think one would be really the quality of the village water security plans. Right? So, and there I'm not talking about technically excellent plans. I'm really talking about the participatory nature of the village water security plans. If we can go into a village, and this is happening, we do test checking what is happening with the village water security plans, go into a village and talk to the village, assembly of people in the village, and a lot of people know that this has happened and know the basic elements of what is there in the plan, then we have a reasonable degree of confidence that we are, going in the right direction.
Right.
What I found very interesting was, again, I keep harking back to a Bhuj visit. There, in one Gram Panchayat, I found the village water security plan very simply put up on a display board in the panchayat office, and the initiatives that had been completed had been ticked off, and this happened even when the sarpanch had changed.
Wow.
That's a great indicator of success. It is that it has been adopted by the community, and therefore, it's sort of also getting moving beyond political change.
Right. So the urgency is internalized, right? And I think that's the ideal outcome. Right? I love that there are a lot of qualitative outcomes to this program and not just the quantitative ones. Yeah.
So actually, the struggle in this program is to try and balance the quantitative outcomes and ensure that the qualitative outcomes are prioritized. Because, if you, in the race to prepare the village water security plans, if the participatory process, we had to say, hold on, go back. We don't think that the security plans the processes have been good enough. So you have to sort of, you have to be able to balance the numbers with what is actually happening on the ground. Because with Atal Bhujal Yojana, what we realized that this is a behavior change program. It is, so we are in it for the long haul. We don't really want, those pretty plans, which then nobody takes forward. So it is important to balance numbers with looking at the quality. So the critical thing is actually processes. How do we get there?
Right. When you're talking about this, I'm just thinking, as someone who's I live in Delhi, and as someone who's living in an urban city, how many times do I ask myself this question? When you spoke about this panchayat, they have internalized this. I don't know if my society or my community is anywhere close to being that, right? What is the impact of what's going on in the top 5-6 cities in India? I'm asking this because unlike rural India, these are probably the high consumption points in this country as well, right? And how are you seeing user behaviors different in urban compared to rural India?
So very frankly, there are, I think the answer to this, the Atal Bhujal Yojana is a rural program.
Right.
Okay. And one of the issues is that, if you're looking at a pan-India context, the greatest gains that we can get from improving water use efficiency and better water management is in the agriculture sector, right? So drinking water comprises a very small percentage of the water that we use across the country.
Okay.
And agriculture is a water guzzler, and our water use efficiency in agriculture is estimated to be about 38%. So there's huge room for improvement there. And, if we can get our act together in terms of micro irrigation, in terms of crop diversification is difficult, but even that is happening in bits and pieces in terms of even fodder, where you can use a different variety of fodder crop to use less water. So if agriculture can become more water use efficient, then more water gets freed up, not just for the health of our rivers, because that is very ecosystems, management of ecosystems, because that I think is a big priority, but also for industrial use, also for drinking water. But that said, I will come to urban. Now, in urban, I think the set of challenges are very interesting. One, of course, is how do you manage your so in urban, getting communities together is that much more difficult. So here, I think the work has been across getting urban local bodies to at least measure their performance in terms of water management. There are some service level benchmarks for water and wastewater management.
Hmm.
And those service level benchmarks are something that, urban local bodies, we would like to go for and push disclosure in a way that people start asking, okay, I mean, why is there so much, why if per capita water is, let's say, 250 liters per day in Delhi, why am I getting only 6 hours of water?
Right.
So that is one. But the second thing is in urban areas is also to integrate water management into city planning. You see, we as with climate change, we are seeing more extreme precipitation events. We've seen the floods in Chennai, and the reason also is that as you concretize, as your extreme climate events, you will find it more difficult to manage. Right. So the city infrastructure has to take into account its water management needs. And that again is something that we're pushing Ministry of Urban Development, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. So your the green-blue infrastructure in a city, and that's something that I think map your water bodies, ensure that your water bodies are ensure better health of your water bodies. Look at your urban catchments. So rainwater harvesting, of course. But I think the focus is on water bodies. And again, if you have a local river, the river has to be brought back into the consciousness of the citizens.
Sometime back you spoke about exhaustively about the role of CSOs, civil society organizations in this. Is there a role for private entities? What can organizations do in this pursuit?
So schools, colleges have environment clubs, etc. So I'm not talking about those.
Yeah, I'm talking about the big private companies, organizations in this country. Do they have a role? Can they help?
Right. So here I would say that, one, of course, clear issue is CSR. Yeah. So how much of your CSR can you devote to water? To that extent, I think it may also depend on where the private entity is located. If you're located in an area where there is a water issue, then it's a good idea to work with the local community on sustainable water management. The second area is responsible water use and water management within the organization itself. I think that. So the groundwater extraction rules that have been of the Central Groundwater Authority require all organizations that are extracting groundwater, commercial organizations, above a certain level, 100 MLD, I think, to compulsorily do an annual water audit, right? So those processes need to be followed with due rigor.
Got it. Yeah.
I think that's all about being a responsible corporate.
Yeah. No, I'm just thinking. I come from advertising, so I'm familiar with CSRs across countries, across companies. I'm just saying, how many companies have water as a focal point of the CSR? Probably only a handful, right? Maybe there is another program there to just educate them on what is going on.
I just wanted to intervene. So one of the things that we're going to do is before the Shakti Abhiyan that's going to kick off this year, end of March, we will bring on board CII, FICCI, ASSOCHAM and ask for maximum participation in terms of CSR in water-related activities in the Shakti Abhiyan. So to partner, wherever you are, partner with the district government, partner with any civil society organization that is doing good work and contribute.
Wonderful. Right. As you were talking about the different programs, right? The one thing that in my mind is that in a country like India, probably the bigger challenge than coming up with a solution is the actual execution of it, right? While you have ensured that all of these missionaries are there, what can the ministry do to improve accountability, governance, and utilization of the funds in the various water programs that we spoke about?
There has been across government, there's been quite a bit of effort to improve, use of funds, accountability. one, of course, and this has been aided by digitization. So one is, the resource transfer can be mapped so much better now because you have designated accounts. There is the public finance management system, which can tell you where the money is going, who to, and in what time. So that mapping of resources, fund transfers, is much better. The second thing is about actually, the work that is done. And for instance, the bulk of the work that was done under the Shakti Abhiyan last year was done through the MG Narega resources. MG Narega spent about 58,000 crore last year on water-related activities, the various water. What has been done for that is every asset that is created is geotagged, and then that goes up onto a portal. The Jal Shakti Abhiyan portal has the details of those assets. This year, we are putting in place a mechanism so that we can actually identify if the same asset is being created year on year. We'd like to identify and find out why. Let's say, last year they've said that we have desilted this pond, and we have the geo coordinates. So this year we are putting in place a mechanism to find out that the same pond has been desilted again. Did it really need desilting year on year? So one, duplication will be reduced. The second is the issue of if there's repeated graft, that also will be identified. The third issue is the quality of the assets created. So one is it really getting created or not? Two is it being shown again and again? The third is the quality. Now, in terms of quality, I think we set in place this thing of social audits. Social audits are in place for MG Narega. For larger water infrastructure, we have a process of third-party quality assurance. So those processes are in place. I will not pretend that they're completely foolproof, but there's a continuous effort to try and ensure that what is being done is better fit for purpose.
For the uninitiated, can you probably elaborate a little bit on what all goes into a social audit?
Right. So, if anybody wants to go into it in greater detail, there are details on the Ministry of Rural Development's website. But the social audit is basically, it's done either at a Gram Panchayat level, where the works that have been done with government resources in the last 1 year are placed before the village community, so that the community can either say, okay, this work got done or did not get done, or say that this work was not done well enough. It is mediated normally not by government, but by an organization with experience in working with village communities. So it is seen as an better accountability measure.
Got it. Right. We're nearing the end of the conversation. I wanted to end this in a slightly more hopeful note. In the last 3 years across all of these programs, what gives you hope? What are some of the big impacts that you're, from your vantage point, seeing, which tells you maybe sometimes amid all the gloomy news that things will get better?
So one of the, just in terms of numbers, and again, attribution is difficult. So I'm not claiming great successes or anything, but the Central Groundwater Board does a dynamic groundwater assessment across the country once in 3 years. So the last an assessment was done in 2017, and the most recent assessment was in 2020. Now there we see an improvement in the groundwater availability in the country. Extraction has reduced, recharge has improved, and therefore your availability of groundwater across the country has improved. Now, this, again, let me qualify this. Attribution is very difficult. 2 or 3 good monsoons could add to your improvement in groundwater, and there are huge spatial differences. So in certain areas, the groundwater table is still dipping. And so there's lots of work to do in certain areas. But overall, country-wide, there is an improvement. And maybe, part of it is because state governments, local administrations are taking groundwater management more seriously. States are doing their own programs. There's the Needi Chattu of Andhra Pradesh. There is the Jal Jeevan Haryali mission of Bihar. There is the, Rajasthan, all states are Gujarat, particularly the water scarce states are seeing water, as I said, as an inhibitor of growth. The last groundwater regulations stipulate that you cannot set up a water extraction industry in an overexploited block. So that is a clear economic, sort of disincentive. So if an industry is to be set up, then the water needs to be managed better.
And these are examples of these are like beverage companies or mineral water bottle companies.
Yes. So those are, but in terms of the other thing that gives me hope is that, there is a lot of interest. There's a lot of, people are coming together to manage water better, even independent of government. And the groups that are coming together on this are diverse groups focused not just on water, but on natural resource management, because you cannot sort of, again, separate water from other natural resources. You cannot separate flowing water from its catchment. So that diversity, that is recognized, particularly in the context of climate change. And the third thing that also gives me hope is within government, and we are a very engineering department, because the engineering departments are recognizing that beyond engineering solutions, if you don't have participatory management of irrigation resources, if you don't have participatory groundwater management, the engineering solutions are not sustainable. And I see this consciousness increasingly coming into even in our department. So that, I think, gives me hope.
Wonderful. Great. Just listening to you and seeing the rigor of what is going on here gives us a lot of hope. We usually ending the episodes in this series by asking our guest, if you have to tell someone listening to this, and our listeners probably are across the country, some outside the country as well. Probably, I'm guessing most of them are in the urban side of things. What are the three things that one can do individually, after listening to this, if he or she wants to contribute to this?
So one of the things that I think is very, this is my husband is a bird enthusiast. And what I find very interesting is that, they have this bird count day in a year. So the Delhi Bird Count Day was a day when bird enthusiasts panned out across the city. And, there were various organizations that sort of anchored it, and they did a bird count. This was, it was not a government enterprise. Government had nothing to do with it. This is led by various, bird societies, city bird societies, but volunteers, people who are excited about birds, just moved out and they did a bird count. And that bird count then works out to be the annual bird count of the city. And it also looks at the bird health. And I wonder if we why can't we do a water body day? Just pan out across the country and go look at our water bodies. What is the extent of my local water body? What is its problem? Why can't we? That I would find that extremely exciting, and I wonder if that's something that we can do as citizens of the country. So I'm excited about my local body. Let's do a water body day, and let's do an annual water body day that sort of just get people conscious of the health of their local water body, right? That's one. The second is just look at your water use. Whoever you are, look at your water use. Can you reduce? There are simple ways in which water use can be, and those are on our website. We've said it ad infinitum, but every little counts. And if you reduce water, and as a domestic consumer, if you reduce water use, you're reducing wastewater, you're reducing the amount of water we need to extract from our rivers. So reduce water use. The other thing is that remember that there is a connect between all building action that we take and the state of water in that area. There are things that we can do in our daily lives. If only we are a little, this sounds a little, but water management is something each of us can do and each of us can contribute to.
Right. Now that's beautifully put. I'm just internalizing this for myself. We all do like art walks, monument walks, food walks, etc. It'll be good, to take you and your family and children probably and just visit the different water sources in your city. Maybe something will occur to you in these journeys. And you spoke about reducing water. I'm also thinking first, at least measure and understand how much water you use, and try and understand where it comes from and where it goes to. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much. Like I said, as much as we all know about the challenges, just listening to you and listening to the absolute rigor that is involved gives us a lot of hope. You were saying something?
No, thank you. I just said thank you. And I hope, the idea is that, again, with the help of you, organizations like yours, these means of reaching out, I mean, everything is too little. But the fact is, we would like as many people as possible to be part of this entire effort. And again, I really like to say is that, the Jal Shakti Abhiyan will start end of March. Also, check for what you can do to reduce, to improve groundwater recharge. If you have water recharge structures in your area, please check that they're not clogged up. Those are little things that people can do so participate in the Jal Shakti Abhiyan. We will set districts and states will put out calls for action. So we would like as many citizens groups, resident welfare associations, mohalla committees, NSS teams, whoever is coming. This is for everybody. So through you, this is a call to everybody to come and be a part of the Jal Shakti Abhiyan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and wishing you success in all of these initiatives. Thank you.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Advertising is Dead, Varun is joined by Pooja Chhabria and Pooja Dhingra to talk about LinkedIn's Creator Accelerator Program, a new initiative designed to support creators on LinkedIn through coaching, recognition, and resources. We have a brand new show on the network this week, Mind the Gender Gap. In the first episode, we talk about what keeps Indian women from joining the workforce. On Cyrus Says, Cyrus is joined by Rahel Padamsee and Vandana Saxena Poria to discuss a book by Alik Padamsee called Let Me Hijack Your Mind. They talk about what the book is and how Vandana got involved with the finishing of the book. On the Habit Coach podcast, Ashton is joined by Loveleen Sirohi, co-founder at India Hemp Organics. They discuss what hemp is and how it's beneficial to our body and much more. On Tere Mere Raaste, Keshav takes us on a beautiful journey to the mountains from Leh to Manali. On All Things Policy, the hosts talk about the rising tension between Russia and Ukraine and how technology is becoming a frontier of the conflict. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you enjoyed this show or any of our shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Word of mouth really does help us. And also, please, a rating if you could. That is also extremely helpful to us. And remember, we're also on YouTube. You can check out ivmpodcast.com/YouTube to get a list of the different channels that we operate on YouTube. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, SBI Life Insurance, Bank of Baroda, India Water Portal, and Max Life Insurance. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Love fighting?
We've got you covered.
Check out our show, The Fighting Goat, where we, the voices of the internet, Arjun Chipalkatti and Somesh Kamra, bring to you crazy weekly action on your favorite combat show, The Fighting Goat.
Be it commentary, breakdown, predictions, analysis of styles and techniques.
And of course, your round of favorite fighters.
You can listen to us every Thursday on the IBM Podcast app, website, and all major podcast streaming platforms.